14,000 people, 14 fixed penalty notices, 0.1% of people receiving a fine. So that just illustrates how much of this is about goodwill from the public, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, policing in this country is about consent, so we have to have the consent of the people in order to police. And we do try and get the public to ensure that they are engaging and complying with the regulations. And we use the 4D approach. We engage, we explain, and we encourage. And the vast majority of the people that we do that to will put on their face mask or will comply. It's only a small minority that we need to go to enforcement and issue fixed penalty notices. And the fact that we've only issued a small percentage just shows that the vast majority of the people are complying and will continue to comply. But I'd just like to make this point very clear. Those who willfully ignore these rules, we will go to enforcement, and officers do have powers to ensure that people are given appropriate punishment where it's required.
Wahid, thank you very much indeed. Wahid Salim, who's the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner for the West Midlands. As we were saying, it's now a quarter of the population now of the UK living under some kind of restriction, some extra measures. If that's you, if you are in Birmingham, Leicester, Greater Manchester, Leeds, it's going to be Cardiff, Swansea, Llanelli as well. All these different areas, the number is growing. If you are in those areas and you are particularly, if you were in one of those areas where you thought you were moving in a better direction, maybe Wigan, Stockport, there's all sorts of places like that as well that are suddenly back under restrictions as well. How are you feeling about it? Or what's the experience with those extra restrictions at the moment? 85058, we'd love to hear from you. As always, it's 7:45 on the Breakfast Programme.
A 90th Formula One career victory for Hamilton as he comes across the line and wins the Tuscan Grand Prix. Mercedes with a 1-2, and third place for Alex Albon, the young Red Bull driver, half British, half Thai, comes across the line in third place for his first ever podium in Formula One.
Next, the Russian Grand Prix. Race commentary from midday on Sunday.
On 5 Live Sports Extra.
We're going to be talking to a man who's moved his wedding so that he can have 15 more guests in a minute. Before that, though, we have reached the semi-final stage of Rugby Union's European Champions Cup. Of course, you can listen to live commentary of Exeter versus Toulouse on the BBC Sport website and the app. That was at 3:30. But before that, Racing 92 take on Saracens. The whole game is live on 5 Live at 1 o'clock. Sarri's Elliot Daly is expecting a difficult game.
We have a bigger challenge, especially in Europe, because it's sort of the only tangible thing we can go for this season. So obviously there's a lot of pressure on Europe, but it's a lot of excitement about it as well, because we played them twice already. We lost away, but then we had a good win at home with 14 men. So yeah, we know what we're going to expect. Big pack, Finn Russell pulling the strings, and they got some X factor as well. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Well, listening to that is former Saracens and England scrum half Kieran Bracken. Morning, Kieran.
Good morning, how are we?
He said it's the only tangible thing we can go for this season. That's putting it mildly, isn't it? Just remind people of the unusual situation Saracens find themselves in.
Yeah, well, Saracens mid-season were sort of caught cheating the system in relation to the salary cap, and the punishment was to relegate Saracens completely from the Premiership into the Championship for next season. So that effectively meant that the points deduction that could never have a chance of getting it, staying in the Premiership, and therefore they've just focused their minds really on Europe, the only tangible thing they could go for. So, incredibly, and I think it's a great sporting story this year, is that no one gave them a chance, because literally half their team has gone out on loan. Some of their best players have gone out on loan or left the club, and yet somehow they've managed to find themselves beating probably the fourth team Leinster through the quarter-finals. No one gave Saracens a chance at all in that game. Even myself, I predicted that Leinster would beat them, but somehow they went over there away from home. They beat the fourth side, Leinster, and now they're facing a fantastic side in Racing. However, they have beat them in 6 of the 8 cases they've met. They beat them in the 2016 final, and yet it just seems another step too far for Saracens. Somehow they just keep plodding along and seem to get the win. So whilst I might say that I think that Racing 92 are favourites, somehow Saracens just have a way of going against all the odds.
And they've got good form in this competition, and they're the things, those sort of superstitious things, aren't they, that play well in players' minds. You know, they say we've done it before, we can go against all the odds. It'll give them a hell of a lot of confidence.
No, absolutely. And like I said, that length of the game is huge. I mean, this game is slightly different. They're playing a very informed side. And if you remember last week when they played against Leicester, they made sure that their key player, Johnny Sexton, had one of his worst games of his life. And again, this time against Racing, Finn Russell, the Scottish white half, has been outstanding for them. Absolutely amazing, pulling all the strings. Saracens have got to work out a way to stop him playing, stop him ruling the roost, and I think they've got a habit of Saracens doing that. And if they do that, then they might win. But yes, you know, the likes of Daly, who were heard earlier, having people like him on your side who have the X factor, to kick a goal from 60 metres, is going to make a massive difference. Now, you've got to remember, this game is away from home from Saracens' point of view. And actually, a lot of games over in France, when they're at home, they tend to win home games. But there's no crowds now.
Yeah, but does it matter anymore?
It doesn't matter. It's just a stadium and a pitch, and there's just two teams going at it. So the only advantage, I suppose, is familiarity on that pitch and, you know, being in your change room. But without the fans, it's massive in France, and I think that really does even everything up.
And, of course, by the end of today, we'll know if we have an All-English European Champions Cup final. Let's talk about the other match, Exeter-Toulouse. How do you see that one going?
Well, again, I mean, that's Sandy Park. Exeter have got a great chance there. You know, they've been very unfortunate over the years, done very well in the Premiership, but they've got this thing that when they get to the finals, they tend to choke. They've lost 3/4 of their finals in the Premiership, and so they've always wanted to do well and excel in Europe, and now's their chance. They're playing at home. They're playing against a very informed Toulouse side. They've got some fantastic individual players, Dupont at fly half, Entermac at fly half. But the thing is, you know, there's no one on the Exeter team sheet, you know, apart from maybe Hogg and fullback, who have the real stars. They just seem to be players who are sort of on the outskirts of their international teams, and it kind of feels that Exeter, though, in the Premiership, they've just railroaded their way through the Premiership, beating everyone comfortably. You know, clear leaders at the top now, and of course in the semi-finals, and so they seem to be the informed team. But they're playing against the Toulouse side. You never know what to expect from them. They've got Colby on the wing, Chesley Colby, who can sidestep anyone and the whole team on his own. So Exeter have got to beware, but Exeter have this habit of they sort of keep the ball so much up front, they just wear you down, and I think it will be an Exeter getting through to the final. But everyone wants to see really an all-English final. Saracens, the next is very vocal about losing their final against a cheating Saracens, so to speak. So it would be amazing to see a final of Europe of Exeter, but I kind of feel that it's going to be an Exeter Racing 92 points.
Oh, don't dampen the dream just yet. Fingers crossed, you never quite know. Kieran, thank you so much for your time this morning. We look forward to seeing how that one plays out. A reminder, Racing 92 Saracens is on 5 Live at 1 o'clock. Exeter Toulouse follows that on the BBC Sport website and app at 3:30 with the closing stages on 5 Live.
Now, there's a flurry of weddings happening this weekend, as the number of guests you're allowed reduced from 30 to 15. That's coming in from Monday. Some people have brought their weddings forward before the new rule is applied. Now, you know, when we're working in radio, if you manage to have a guest sorted for the programme, yeah, we call that a fix. Yeah, so somebody is fixed to come on the program. Who have you fixed? That's a really good fix. That's what you'll sort of hear in the newsroom all the time. This is probably one of the easier fixes for the programme. I'm going to say that, okay?
Don't say that.
It's an easier fix for the programme because the couple we're going to speak to, marvellous that we're going to speak to them on their wedding day, our very own entertainment correspondent, the man himself, Colin Patterson. Good morning, Colin.
Good morning, Chris.
And his fiancée, Louise Blythe. Hello, Louise.
Hello, guys.
Nice to talk to you, Louise. We've never actually even met or spoken, even though I'm a friend of Colin, so it's nice to speak to you in this way. Now, you're in different locations at the moment, aren't you? Where are you both right now? Colin?
Premier in Newark, classy venue.
Yeah, good. And Louise, where are you?
I'm at my house, which is near Newark, So yeah,
Right,
Colin
right.
definitely got the worst deal.
Okay,
I
okay.
ordered the big breakfast at 8:30. I get the full fry-up.
The whole lot.
There you go.
Oh, and it's table service at the moment as well, isn't it, at the Premier Inn? So you are winning big time on this one, Colin. How are you both feeling? I mean, I know it's the most basic radio question anyone could possibly ask, but on your big day, Louise, how are you feeling inside yourself this morning?
Oh, I feel everything. I feel joy, I feel happiness, but overwhelmingly the one word I've used to explain how I'm feeling this week is relief. I think once we made the decision that we were going to get married today, I just felt relief because I knew that that would be what we were doing and no other announcements could change it, which is really, really amazing. So, yeah, exciting times.
And the remarkable thing is that you were basically able to change your wedding plans in a matter of hours, Colin. You know, that just underlines the times we're in.
It was absolutely insane. So on Tuesday, Louise was visiting a friend, and I said, right, I'll listen to Boris Johnson in the Commons, as you do in the build-up to a wedding, and see if there's any changes. Because we were going to be getting married on Saturday, October the 3rd, next Saturday. And then at 12:40 on Tuesday, Boris Johnson said from Monday, weddings were going to be cut from 30 to 15. So I instantly phoned up Louise, and we had this 20-minute conversation where we went through, shall we do it, shall we go for it? And I think it was the moment when we realised our nieces and nephew wouldn't be able to come to the wedding, that we thought, right, let's go for this.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. It's nice. I love when Colin's sort of telling this. I think our listeners will agree. It still sort of feels like Colin's still doing a report for us, even though he's talking about. It's like he's about.
12:40.
It's like you're about to talk into a clip of the vicar or something, Colin.
And I've got to say, I've just got to jump in. And Louise, I'm sure you've got no cold feet, but just in case you had, there is not a person in this building that doesn't follow up Colin Patterson's name with "What a nice guy," and even the listeners.
That's true.
There's been a flurry of listeners saying Colin Patterson getting married. What a distinct voice of 5 Live. Lots of love and luck, guys. So I think the listeners are wishing you love and luck.
Aww. That's so
nice.
kind.
That's nice,
well,
isn't it?
Can I say how wonderful Louise is, thanks?
Oh.
And the story is, yeah, I don't think I've ever cried in 5 Live before.
Come on. Pull yourself together, man.
Well, I'm trying to pull myself together, pretend I'm doing a report.
Yeah.
You know, I was supposed to do the Mercury Prize this week, and my boss actually gave me the week off to get the wedding
should hope
together,
so.
although it was all Louise who did it. But Louise's husband, George, died 4 years ago from bowel cancer, and she was left with a 1-year-old and 3-year-old boys, Jamie and Charlie. And the way that Louise has rebuilt her life is just so amazing. She's absolutely refused to give in, and she's always fought to find the fun in life. And Louise's mantra is choose your attitude, and oh gosh, yeah, she's one of the most upbeat people I have ever met. This is not my speech, by the way, for later.
It's a rehearsal.
But without being too cheesy, if you are listening at home and you have lost your partner recently, Louise is proof that there is hope, and she is wonderful. Although some people might think the fact she's ended up marrying me is a bit of a booby trap at the end of all that. But yeah, she's absolutely
great.
incredible.
That is really good. I bet you've kindly invited me to be part of the streaming audience for your wedding. So I know what I'm going to be doing at 2 o'clock this afternoon. It's going to be sitting down in front of my laptop with my wife with a glass of fizz in our hands, toasting you guys and watching this, streaming the wedding. I mean, this is a very Colin Patterson idea, I have to say. Were you fully behind this, Louise, or is this one of those ones where you're just like, yeah, fine, Colin, we'll stream the wedding, no problem?
I think it might have actually been my idea.
Oh, was it?
Colin's.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, they're well paired. They're well matched.
Yeah, I think it might. Mainly because my nan is 91 and she can't come to the wedding. So my family in Sheffield this morning are going to be gathering my nan around the TV. I don't think she even knows what YouTube is. And putting a hat on her to let her watch her granddaughter get married. So yeah, shout out to my nan and Dot on my wedding day.
I have taken it to the next level though, Chris, because obviously only 30 people are allowed in the church. We're getting married in Trinity Church in Nottingham, who have been amazing at helping us turn this around in like a matter of days. There's a great pub in Nottingham called the Lincolnshire Poacher, and they have agreed to live stream the wedding in the pub, and people have been signing up individually, booking their own socially distanced tables. They're going to be in individual pods, and our friends are going to get dressed up and sit in the pub, and between Man United v Brighton and the Crystal Palace match, they are showing our wedding. And in fact, Louise, are you happy if we give listeners a way of watching, Louise?
Oh, she can't.
I'm happy for listeners to watch. My nan's calling it the royal wedding. Colin, I'll let you tell people how they can find it.
If people want to watch us, and you will almost certainly see me cry, if you Google Louise Blythe Wonderfulness of Life YouTube, Louise is putting it live streaming on her YouTube channel.
If someone, when you're doing a speech, if there isn't someone in that congregation just going, Bono, 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 to put you off, I will be seriously disappointed.
It was my stag do last night, Chris, and the people that came had to pick 5 songs that reminded them of me. Yeah. There was a lot of U2 last night.
I bet there was. Hey, listen, guys, the very best. I know it's probably not the absolutely ideal situation, but I know you're making the absolute most of it. Looking forward to the live streaming. And, you know, all happiness to you. Thank you so much.
And the listeners are in tears and they're wishing you well. So, yeah, an army and swell of loveliness coming your way, both.
Yeah. Take care, guys. All the best. Have a great day.
You don't feel as special now it's on YouTube, do you?
Well, I felt like, so yeah, exactly. I'm just one in many, right? I get it. And that was Louise Blythe as well. Many congratulations to both of them. Stay with us. The news is next.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
BBC News at 8 o'clock on Saturday the 26th of September. Good morning. This is Anthony Birchley. It's emerged that the man accused of shooting dead a police officer in a custody centre had his hands in cuffs behind his back at the time. Hundreds of university students in Manchester have been told to self-isolate for 2 weeks because of an outbreak of the coronavirus. And people who've recovered from COVID-19 are being urged to donate blood for research. An investigation has begun into the background of a man suspected of shooting dead the police sergeant Matt Radner at a custody centre in South London in the early hours of yesterday. The 23-year-old man had his hands cuffed behind his back at the time. He also suffered a gunshot wound and remains in a critical condition. Scotland Yard says the incident is not being treated as terror-related. Our Home Affairs correspondent Tom Simons says a key question for investigators will be how the shooting could have happened inside the police building.
I mean, this is a brand new custody centre covered with CCTV cameras. He would have been fully searched at the point where he's inside the custody centre. That's something the police can do pretty easily at that point. So the Office of Police Conduct will be looking very closely at that and trying to work out, using primarily CCTV, I think at this stage, how it was that the gun was there in the first place.
1,700 students at Manchester Metropolitan University have been instructed to stay in their halls of residence for 2 weeks because of an outbreak of the coronavirus. More than 120 students have tested positive. Our correspondent Dan Johnson reports.
Students staying in the Burley campus and Cambridge halls of residence have been told to isolate for a fortnight after the Council and Public Health England were called in to respond to around 100 cases of the virus. Students have been told not to leave their flats unless there's a medical emergency. Manchester's Public Health Director said he was moving quickly to ensure there was no transmission to the wider community. The university said it would provide welfare, medical and emotional support for the students. Teaching will move online. Those in halls not affected have been urged to respect local social distancing regulations, but as more students return to universities across the country, further outbreaks seem inevitable.
New restrictions have come into force in Wigan, Stockport, Blackpool and Leeds, where people from different households are banned from mixing in their homes or gardens. Local lockdown measures in Wales will be extended to the town of Llanelli this evening and to Cardiff and Swansea tomorrow. An estimated 17 million people, more than a quarter of the UK's population, will be living under extra restrictions when the new measures have taken effect. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, is appealing to people who've recovered from coronavirus to donate blood for a new study. It'll examine if there are genetic factors which determine whether those infected with COVID-19 have mild or severe symptoms. Our health correspondent Richard Galpin reports.
It's still not fully understood why for some people contracting coronavirus can prove fatal, while for others it leads only to minor symptoms. This study aims to find the answer using genetic sequencing. Led by the University of Edinburgh, the full DNA of 20,000 people who became severely ill with the virus will be compared with thousands of others who had symptoms but didn't need to go to hospital. This is hoped will highlight variations in people's genetic makeup, which it's thought could be responsible for some having a more severe reaction to the virus.
The consumer group Which estimates that around £100 million worth of shopping vouchers were wasted during the lockdown earlier this year. It says around 3 million people lost an average of £31.70 as their vouchers expired when shops and businesses were closed. Media reports in America say President Trump wants to appoint an anti-abortion judge to fill the vacancy on the US Supreme Court. If Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed as Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement, conservative-leaning justices would hold a 6-3 majority on America's highest court for the foreseeable future. Speaking to reporters, Mr. Trump declined to confirm his decision, says he was impressed by Judge Barrett's credentials.
I haven't said it was her, but she is outstanding. But they're all outstanding. They're all very outstanding people. Top of the line academically and every way possible.
Documents filed at Companies House show that the British billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe has moved to Monaco. Sir Jim founded the Ineos Petrochemicals company and has a fortune estimated at £12 billion. He backed the Leave campaign in the Brexit referendum. People who live in Monaco for at least half the year pay no income or property taxes. And the weather, cool and windy again today, but largely dry and sunny, except in eastern England, where it will be cloudy with showers. Top temperatures of 15 Celsius in Cardiff. In at 8:05.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live, available on the BBC Sounds app. Saturday Breakfast.
Just before the news, we were talking to Colin Patterson, who is getting married today to his lovely fiancée, Louise Blythe. We have had so many listeners. This is testament to Colin's voice, isn't it? Colin is our entertainment correspondent. You'll have heard him on many a red carpet. You do a great impression. Do the Bono shout.
Bono! Bono!
There you go. Cupcake Janie says, I never expected Colin to have me in tears, but that one did. Wishing you and Louise all the luck and love in the world. Thank you for sharing your day. And she hopes, Chris, you'll be in your best bib and tucker. So many of you getting in touch to echo the same sentiments. If you're one of those couples who've moved your wedding and do things a bit differently, if it counts for anything, me and Chris are saying have a lovely day. There you go. That's warm, isn't it?
Yeah, you can speak on my behalf for that.
Are you going to, when you join the virtual wedding later, are you going to get fully dressed? Or
Or
are you
like
just
a newsreader, just wearing a pair of shorts and a shirt and tie above. I think the latter. I think I'll probably do that, yeah.
So, like, smart from the waist up?
But no one can see you anyway. But they want us to take photos and post selfies during it, you see.
Oh, okay.
So there's a kind of community going on.
I like it. And
they were selling tickets, not selling tickets. You know, Eventbrite. It was an Eventbrite thing. You had to register for the tickets and everything.
You've just shattered all the goodwill for Colin Patterson there. If he's selling tickets.
It's not 15 quid. You know what I mean? It's not like that. No.
Anyway, let's move on, should we? It's the first weekend of the 10 o'clock closing time for pubs. We're going to have a look at how it's going. We've spoken to a couple of people, obviously nervous about what things are doing. A couple of people have been in touch to say our local micro pub has kept going by doing beer takeaway, says Mike. It's not ideal, but I'm sure it'll keep things going for now. Thank you for getting in touch, Mike. We're also going to be checking back in with a couple of students who are in lockdown because of coronavirus outbreaks. I'm smirking because we were speaking to Trisha earlier, who literally said, if COVID doesn't kill my daughter, I will. She's been under my roof for 6 months. I'm glad she's gone to university. We're going to speak to Manchester's Director of Public Health before 8:30.
Let's start, though, at 8:07 this hour with the tragic death of Sergeant Matt Ratner, the police officer shot and killed in a custody centre in South London yesterday. Such a tragedy, this. He was just 2 months away from retirement and was the custody sergeant in Croydon, where he managed suspects being brought into the cells.
There are images of him all over the papers today, all over television, tributes flooding in to the man that he was. He was 54, originally from New Zealand, and had been with the Metropolitan Police since 1991. He leaves a partner and an adult son. Away from work, he was massively into his rugby and at one point played for London Irish and coached at East Grinstead. Ryan Morlan is the assistant head coach there.
It just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like it's actually happened. It hasn't sunk in yet, really. So yeah, unbelievably sad. Unbelievably sad. I met him at South Coast Gym originally, and then got him involved in Hove Rugby Club, and that's where I kind of, for 3-4 years, that's where we spent a lot of our time together before he went over to Worthing Rugby Club, and then finally at the beginning of this season I was asked to go over to East Grinstead. So I've known Matt for years, and the last 5-6 months we've literally messaged, spoke on the phone every single day. He's a bloke that he's just so passionate about what he does. He always has been. It doesn't matter if you're the most talented or the least talented person, he'll treat you equal to that. He just wants to help people out, basically. That's what Matt was all about. Yeah, just an absolute lovely bloke. He was passionate about his job, very dedicated to that, and would work the hours he worked. He was saying 6 nights in a row, but then he would find a way to make sure that he had the energy to come up to the rugby club and put exactly the same into his rugby. He would be very passionate about rugby and just want the guys to achieve. He would, as I said, he would help anyone. He was just a guy that would go above and beyond, and he took the club to new levels, and that's why I was asked to be involved and wanted to be involved, because he just took it to new levels there, and he loved his job. He loved Sue very much, and he loved rugby. Rugby was his passion. If anything, he spoke too much. We heard about it all the time. Rugby, but he was brilliant at what he done. And he affected so many people positively. So many people have gained something great from Matt, and he's going to be a huge loss to the gym, to the rugby club, to just anyone that knew him.
Isn't that lovely words from Ryan Morland, remembering his friend Matt Ratner. After the shooting, the 23-year-old suspect is then believed to have shot himself. He's critically ill in hospital. He had originally been arrested for an alleged drugs offence and possession of ammunition. The shots were fired when he was in handcuffs and about to be searched with a metal detector.
I wanted to speak a bit more about guns in the UK. How many are there? How easy are they to get hold of? Dr. Helen Poole is the Dean of Law, Policing and Forensics at Staffordshire University. Good morning, Dr. Poole.
Good morning.
So what is the situation with guns in the UK? Broadly speaking, how many are there on UK streets?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to express my sympathies to Matt's family, friends and colleagues as well. It's difficult to say exactly how many illegal firearms there are in the UK by virtue of the fact they are illegal. But I would just say that these kinds of incidents are really rare, and we're well protected by both legislation and police and intelligence services from these kinds of incidents. So, for example, the year to March 2019, there were 33 fatalities from firearms in the UK. So these are rare occurrences.
And I guess testament to that is the fact that people are so saddened and shocked by this incident. And this is something that's going to have ripples for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the police, within my school at Staffordshire University, we train police officers. And I think for the police, an assault on one is like an assault on all, and they're very much, the police are a family in many respects, and so this will be difficult not just for family and friends, but also for the police and his colleagues, some of whom were obviously witness to the offence.
And how easy is it for somebody to get hold of an illegal gun?
It's obviously it's possible, and obviously it happened in this incident, and I think it's fair to assume that this firearm was held illegally from what we know about the background of the offender. We are protected to a certain extent because we are an island, and so it's more difficult for illegal firearms to move into the country, but they do move in lots of different ways. So people can order parts and ammunition sometimes over the internet, over the dark web. They do come in sometimes through ports, through airports, although it's fairly uncommon. And we do have a lot of old and antique and junk weapons in circulation, not a massive amount, as we can tell from the number of offences and fatalities, but there are weapons in circulation that might be considered obsolete, but for which people are manufacturing ammunition.
And I guess the difficult thing for people to get their head around, because not that many people understand the custody process and the handcuffing process, is how on earth did someone in handcuffs manage to actually fire shots?
It's an interesting question, and it's not one I feel able to speculate on. I haven't been privy to the CCTV, and I don't know the full extent. But it does seem quite puzzling. But I'm sure all of that information will come out in due course.
What type of guns are we talking about in terms of the guns that this suspect might be able to carry and conceal? Is it like a handheld revolver?
I know that's been suggested in the press today that it was a handheld revolver, and we do have some revolvers and pistols, but they're by and large illegally held in this country.
And I guess that's a difficult stage at this point, isn't it, Dr. Poole?
Yeah.
That there is so much speculation because it is such a shocking and tragic story that there'll be all kinds of things floating around in the papers that you perhaps wouldn't want to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. That's Dr. Helen Poole, the Dean of Law, Policing and Forensics at Staffordshire University.
Now then, I need to tell you that we have got a busy weekend on 5 Live for sport. Another 6 Premier League commentaries over the next 3 days, culminating in Liverpool versus Arsenal on Monday evening. That's at Anfield. We've also got the rugby. We were speaking to Kieran Bracken about that earlier on, former Saracens player, of course. The first of the semi-finals of the European Champions League. No, European Champions Cup. Get it right. Racing 92 versus Saracens is live on 5 Live at 1 o'clock. We've also got the Russian Grand Prix on 5 Live Sports Extra tomorrow. Qualifying available online today if you want to listen out for that. In terms of the football, I mentioned Liverpool-Arsenal on Monday. We'll bring you updates of Brighton versus Manchester United, West Brom versus Chelsea, Burnley versus Southampton as well. But our commentary game comes from Selhurst Park, and it's a game between a couple of sides with 100% winning starts to the season. Crystal Palace hosting Everton. Everton boss Carlo Ancelotti says his side have started the season with hunger.
We started well the season with more motivation, more ambition. I think we did well the first 2 games. We have a good test tomorrow. We are focused there. This is our target, to think about the game against Crystal Palace.
Let's speak to Matt Jones from the Blue Room Everton podcast. Hello, Matt.
Morning, guys.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love Carlo Ancelotti?
11 or 12, something like that. I think not only has he shown himself to be a fantastic manager and a nice guy, but he's somebody who's thrown himself into the area. You know, it's well known he's moved to Crosby. You know, he's often seen out and about around there. You know, down on the beach there. You know, taking in the local scenery. He seems to have really thrown himself into this job, and maybe that was something that people didn't think he was going to necessarily do when he came to Everton, but he's embraced the city and embraced the football club, so it's great to see.
The thing that looks clear this season, right from the off, is that this is a side, whether it's Calvert-Lewin, whether it's James Rodriguez, whether it's Richarlison, this is a team with goals in them.
Yeah, and it's something that we've not been able to say about Everton too much down the years, to be fair. Obviously, they've scored 5 goals for consecutive games now. I think they've had something about 80 shots in the first 4 games of the season. And certainly in that attacking 3 that you mentioned there, with Rodriguez on the right, with Richarlison on the left and Dominic Calvert-Lewin spearheading it, there's a nice balance in there. There's creativity, there's aerial strength, there's pace, there's skill, there's they can interchange. It is really exciting, and I think that the player that sort of knitted all that together at the start of the season has been James. He's been a real superstar so far, and looks like he's helping get even more from Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who were so good last season.
That's one of those, isn't it, where you would hope that he would just start as you would expect from a player of his quality, James Rodriguez, but it's no guarantee, is it, that when a player like that comes into the Premier League, it could go either way ultimately.
Yeah, and of course, it's always the case, isn't it, when players come to the league for the first time. But I think one of the things that Evertonians have sort of thought, and I've sort of thought throughout the summer, and sort of going back to the manager, is that Carlo Ancelotti's no fool. He knows this player really well. He's worked with him a couple of times now at different football clubs. He would have done his research. He would have spoken to people who he knows at Real Madrid and people he knows at Bayern Munich about the player, what he's like in training, how he's holding up, what's his fitness like, is he motivated, all these sorts of things. And what we've seen so far is a player in James Rodriguez, despite the fact that obviously on Match of the Day last week the stats said that he did 0 sprints in the game against West Brom. He's somebody who is motivated, is focused, and we've seen already that quality he possesses with his left foot, his ability to find space.
Yeah,
it is wonderful. And so I was just going to say, going back to what I said about the manager at the start as well, James used to be enjoying it as well. He's someone who looks like he's enjoying playing football under a manager. he knows really well. The manager who trusts him and is going to give him game time, whereas at Real Madrid in recent years with Zinedine Zidane, he's obviously not had that.
Sure. What about the back, though? This is a slightly more vexed issue here, isn't there? In respect of Jordan Pickford in particular, he got the dreaded vote of confidence, I noted, from Ancelotti the other day. How confident are you and other Everton fans that you'll hear from doing the podcast in the England #1 at the moment?
The confidence, I wouldn't say it's really high at the moment. I think, to be fair, the majority of Blues that we speak to, and obviously this isn't a definitive sample by any means, but a lot of people are beginning to lose confidence. I think that the issue in defence is twofold. Obviously, Everton have got a lot of injuries at the back. Mason Holgate, who was the best defender last season for long spells, is out for around 12 weeks from when he got the injury, so that's a big blow. Jared Branthwaite, who's obviously a youngster but came in and did really well at the end of last season, he's injured for a while as well. So Yerry Mina and Michael Keane are the only fit senior centre-backs, and as such Luca Dean had to come in and do a job in that position in midweek. And the other issue, as you said, is the goalkeeper in Pickford. And the worry for me personally with this now is that for so long he used to be able to say about Jordan Pickford whatever went on with his concentration and the mistakes he made, that he's a really good shot stopper. He's always somebody who pull out really big saves for you at important times. And to be fair, on week 1 against Tottenham Hotspur he did that and helped Everton get a really good result. But now what we're seeing is a goalkeeper who is really struggling in that aspect of his game as well. You know, not only are we seeing the mistakes like he made against Fleetwood in midweek for the first goal, where his distribution's a bit lagging and he loses his concentration. We're seeing mistakes more often like he made in the second goal, where effectively it's a shot straight at him, right down his throat, and somehow it ends up in the back of the net. So even the things that we've so long said about Jordan Pickford for him being good at, he doesn't really feel like he's that good at them anymore. Yeah. And when you've got a goalkeeper who's got issues and mistakes in various aspects of the game, it doesn't really feel as though it's a case now of saying, right, if we sort this out with Jordan Pickford, then he's going to be fine. It feels like we've got to sort this out, we've got to sort this out, we've got to sort this out, and that's a bit of a worry for me going forward.
More than just a wobble. It's funny you say about those statistics. I just finished by looking at those against West Brom, the Everton front three. So it's Rodriguez. No, I'll do it the other way around. Calvert-Lewin, 9 passes, 25 touches, 13 sprints. Richarlison, 24 passes, 40 touches, 15 sprints. Rodriguez, 47 passes, so a huge number of passes. Touches 68, sprints none, just like you said. But that, in a way, is a kind of lesson. I mean, you sort of think of those players expending less energy, but you can be just as effective and deadly. You know, you think of an Iniesta, or going back in the old days, like the other side of the park from you guys, a kind of Jan Molby figure. You know, it was legendarily, you know, they used to say wouldn't go outside the centre circle, but that's a kind of metronome figure who just keeps the whole thing rolling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, the joke we've been sort of doing this week is that he doesn't really need to run in that sense. But I think just adding a bit more context to that figure, we speak to somebody called Matt Cheatham from Sky, who does a lot of stats work, and he sort of said that a sprint is classed as somebody reaching 25 kilometres an hour or higher, or effectively level 25 on a treadmill.
Okay.
His average speed, his average speed during the game was actually faster than several others, so it's not as if he's just stood there and sort of saying, "Go on, lads, you guys can do everything else." But I think there is some truth in that sense. You know, he doesn't have to. He's not going to be somebody who's charging back to offer Seamus Coleman cover. So give him freedom and he'll create.
Well, he's doing the job. All right, Matt, lovely to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
No problem.
Matt Jones from the Blue Room Everton podcast, and you can hear live commentary. You can listen to the game on 5 Live. Crystal Palace versus Everton. It's part of 5 Live's Around the Grounds goal service at 3 o'clock this afternoon, 8:22.
Yeah, loads of sport today. Big day for women's cricket. We'll be speaking to one of the ladies in camp a little bit before the top of the hour. We're also going to be finding out how pubs are coping now that it's 10 p.m. closing time.
On BBC One. Sometimes life happens, and you just have to deal with it.
Behind the doors of 4 flats.
We've been neighbours for years.
And yet I barely know you.
Are 4 extraordinary stories.
Help! I'm having my baby!
A brand new drama from the writer and producers of Dr. Foster.
Some things are best kept secret. Suits me.
Life.
We can't go on like this.
I know.
Starts Tuesday night at 9 on BBC One and iPlayer.
Right, we've been talking about this all morning. Students in lockdown. Lots of messages from parents dropping off their offspring. As a father of 2 Scottish students, it is unfair to expect students not to be students, says this dad. They're being offered online lessons, but student life is about leaving home and making friends. Don't judge them for enjoying life. There are risks, but they have to be balanced. I look forward to welcoming them back to our home when they want, says Alan in Giffnock. Do you share his view? 85058. Well, 1,700 students at the University of Manchester Metropolitan have been asked to self-isolate.
Contact with somebody with it, and then we got no one. They've not given us any advice on like how to do washing, how to get food, so it's a bit stressful.
I think it's a bit late really too, because coronavirus has already spread through the building now, so most of us have already had it in the building.
It probably couldn't get much worse. Like we've all had it, we've all isolated, we've all actually stuck to the rules as well.
We've not been given any indication how we're going to get the supplies we need, like shopping, and we have no access to washing machines to wash our clothes. We haven't really been given any information by the university at all.
Well, we're going to speak to a university poised to welcome back students in a moment. Before we do, though, let's speak to David Regan. He's the Director of Public Health in Manchester. David, you were listening to that, but talk us through why the university had to make the decision to tell all of those students, 1,700 is a lot, to self-isolate for a fortnight.
Good morning. It was the university working in partnership with myself as Director of Public Health in Manchester and Public Health England. And we met yesterday because we've been really concerned about the rising number of positive cases over the last few days. It went from a very small outbreak to over 120 cases, as you've identified, and we knew it was time to take swift action just to limit the spread amongst the student population, but also the spread in our local communities in Manchester, where there are more vulnerable people, more at risk of serious illness from COVID.
And how big of a concern is that, COVID getting into the wider community?
It's a major concern. We've already seen hospital admissions increase in Manchester over the last week. Still relatively small numbers, 75 patients in COVID beds in Manchester hospitals, much lower than the 500 or more cases in April. But the worry is this is a trend that will continue to rise. So we must do everything we can to limit the spread of the virus to those, as I say, who are more clinically vulnerable.
1,700 have been told to self-isolate. It sounds like a lot, but in the wider university population, it's a drop in the iceberg. You know, and there's the other university as well, because there's 2 unis in Manchester. Do these restrictions go far enough?
Well, at the moment, as you say, 74,000 students come to Manchester. Students are a fantastic asset to our city. We really come alive as a city from September onwards. We are monitoring all the halls now with all the universities, including the University of Manchester, the Royal Northern College of Music, to monitor cases. We'll introduce mass testing for halls if we think that's necessary, but we really recognise this isn't just a problem for the halls that are currently under the mini lockdown. It's something we'll be monitoring across all student accommodation in the city over the next week.
Are they being unfairly blamed for spreading the virus?
Let me be very clear, we don't blame people of any of students of our different communities for the spread of the virus. The virus doesn't choose the age of people it infects, it doesn't choose the ethnicity of people it infects. It's a problem for us all to deal with. So we do not blame the students at all. We really want to make sure that they're supported, that we look after their welfare, we make sure they get the food, we make sure they get the access to the washing facilities I've heard on the clips, and we also look after their mental health and well-being, and that's why we've mobilised our primary care services through our medical director, Dr. Manisha Kumar, to make sure we've got services in place over the weekend and over the next few weeks.
Are they sticking to the rules? Are they self-isolating? Because you've only asked them to do it, you're not enforcing it in any sort of policing way, are you?
No, we're really encouraging that compliance. We're trying to emphasise, you know, that impact on the wider community, really appealing to, you know, the spirit of Manchester coming together to enjoy our city. We know this is this is really difficult and challenging, but we want students to really get through the next few weeks of this lockdown, and then things will settle down for the students in these particular halls. So we're really appealing to them to play by the rules, basically. It is difficult. We've had new restrictions being brought in, and we want people to really we see students as residents of the city, so we really want all residents, including students, to play their part.
Just finally, David, how confident are you then that you can keep this under control and ultimately keep the university open all year?
Right. We are determined, just as we are with schools, we're determined to keep the universities open. Students, important fabric for the city. They work in our hospitality sector. They bring so much more. And most importantly, for them to get the academic qualifications in the best way possible. So we're determined, working with the university, working with Public Health England, to keep the universities open and give students the best possible experience of our great city.
Well, David Regan, it sounds like you've got a battle on your hands. Good luck. David Regan is the Director of Public Health in Manchester, where 1,700 university students have been encouraged to self-isolate for the next fortnight after 120 tested positive. Let's bring in Professor Deborah Humphreys, who's the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Brighton. Most of their students arriving back this weekend, I understand, Deborah?
Yeah, Helen, I would normally on this Saturday be at our halls of residence, lifting bags, welcoming students, saying hello to parents, but obviously we're keeping numbers at a minimum, and we've been gradually returning students over a very whole week, so that they have very specific time slots. We can move them in, we can make sure everybody's really aware of the basics of the hygiene requirements that we would want them to follow. So a very, very careful move in.
How closely have you been watching what's happened at other universities, Manchester for instance?
All universities, all vice-chancellors and incident response teams in universities will be sharing information. We're all concerned as a whole sector. We're all doing everything we possibly can, and have been doing actually since March, to ensure that we have a COVID-safe environment in our universities.
A lot of people are saying this was inevitable. You bring students together in an environment where they're all meeting each other, the boundaries are down to this different stage of life, they're living on top of each other. If a rise in cases was inevitable, why open the doors?
That assumes that the virus wouldn't have spread anyway. I mean, clearly the movement of students has led to a rise in cases. But there are behaviours in the rest of communities where we see behaviours that might lead to a rise in cases. And I do think, I'm talking to students who've arrived, they're so keen. They've been in lockdown at home since March. They haven't been in education, and there's so many of them who are so keen to get on with their lives and their education.
And I guess we're talking about a group of people who are willing to invest a lot of money and time into their education, so they want to do it, don't they?
They want to do it, and they're also, I mean, I fear that students are characterised in some way as being, the irresponsible and unaware of what's going on. The majority of my students, the majority of students across higher education are responsible adults. They understand what's happening. They see what's happening to their families. And in some cases, many of them will have had families where they've had a bereavement related to this dreadful disease.
So we heard what David was saying there. They're encouraging people to self-isolate. You've obviously got a lot of experience face-to-face with students. How likely is it that they will stick to the rules?
I would suggest, at the University of Brighton, the majority of my students will stick to the rules. They're sensible people, they're not all young people, and they appreciate the risks. And I also pick up the points that the students in Manchester made about washing and supplies. So as we've been preparing for students to return to halls, our residential life team have been doing a fabulous job. And we have all of that scenario planned. If we had to do that, we know what we would do.
Are you preparing to have them over Christmas if it comes to it?
Well, we will be guided completely by the advice from Public Health England and our local public health colleagues who have been also excellent. And we, as you would expect, think through every potential scenario. We have to plan longer term, and that's what we do.
And you're adapting, you're doing things differently. 20% of your lessons are going to be face-to-face. A lot of things will be happening online. The question that everyone is asking, or lots of parents are asking, is are students getting their money's worth, given that a lot more is virtual teaching?
So we have never stopped educating our students since March. So my colleagues across the entire university, both academics and my professional service colleagues, have been amazing in transforming all of the final term, the last academic year, to remote learning and assessment. And we were able to graduate students. And then all over the summer, everybody's been preparing to put the whole of the first term for this new academic year into remote, a mixture remote and blended. And we have a range of, obviously we have a lot of courses where real practical experience matters, whether that's training to be a nurse or a doctor, going into a studio as an artist, as a mechanical engineer. So we've put in place arrangements to do all those experiences which are vital to the learning outcomes can be achieved in a COVID-safe way.
Professor Deborah Humphreys, who's the Vice-Chancellor of University of Brighton, good luck welcoming all those new students and watching things how evolve and change. Thank you very much. We are going to get to the news, but I just very quickly want to read one text. Oliver in Huddersfield says, stop modifying it by saying students are being encouraged. The Director of Public Health in Manchester said they were encouraging people to self-isolate. Oliver says people are being ordered to do so. There are strict penalties, including dismissal for not doing so. It's not just being encouraged. If you're one of those students who's being threatened with being dismissed if you don't stick to the rules, do let us know. 85058 is 834.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And the BBC News on 5 Live. An investigation has begun into the background of a man suspected of shooting dead the police sergeant Matt Ratner at a custody centre in South London in the early hours of yesterday. The 23-year-old man had his hands cuffed behind his back at the time. He also suffered a gunshot wound and remains in a critical condition. Scotland Yard says the incident is not being treated as terror-related.
And as we've just been hearing, 1,700 students at Manchester Metropolitan University have been instructed to stay in their halls of residence for 2 weeks because of an outbreak of coronavirus. More than 120 students have tested positive.
New restrictions have come into force in Wigan, Stockport, Blackpool and Leeds, where people from different households are banned from mixing in their homes or gardens. Local lockdown measures in Wales will be extended to the town of Llanelli this evening and to Cardiff and Swansea tomorrow. An estimated 17 million people, more than a quarter of the UK's population, will be living under extra restrictions when the new measures have taken effect.
The consumer group Which estimates that around £100 million worth of shopping vouchers were wasted during the lockdown earlier this year. It says around 3 million people lost an average of £31.70 as their vouchers expired when shops and businesses were closed.
And an airline union official has said he believes EasyJet is hanging by a thread. The BBC has obtained a recording in which Martin Entwistle of the pilots' union BALPA makes the comment following a meeting with the airline's chief financial officer. EasyJet denies the claim, reflects what either the airline or the executive had said. Right, it's 8:36. Katie Smith's got our sports news. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Chris. Well, Saracens against Racing 92, Exeter against Toulouse. That's the final four in Champions Cup action today. The defending champions Sarries looking for silverware before their relegation from the Premiership for salary cap breaches. It's Exeter's first time in the semi-finals though, but former Sarries scrum half Kieran Bracken's already looking ahead to the final.
Everyone wants to see really an all-English final. Saracens, the next is very vocal about losing their final against a cheating Saracens, so to speak. So it would be amazing to see a final in Europe.
1 o'clock, we've got commentary of Saracens against Racing. Plenty of action in the Premier League too today. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says there is the possibility we'll see Van der Beek, Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba all playing in midfield together. Manchester United travel to Brighton for the day's early kick-off. They need a win to avoid their worst start to the season since 1992.
I think good players can play well together. And that's the first point, but also Scott, Nemanja and Fred, they're also good players. So there's competition for those places. So I can see lots of different combinations in that midfield, different systems as well. We're probably going to see them together at some point.
Elsewhere, Everton take on Crystal Palace, both without loss so far in the season. That's our 3 o'clock commentary game. New keeper Edouard Mendy isn't expected to play for Chelsea today. They take on West Brom, while Burnley face Southampton. It's a North London derby in the Women's FA Cup quarter-finals. World Cup winner Alex Morgan might get her Spurs debut as they take on Arsenal. QPR and Man City defender Nader Manouas says taking the knee in English football should remain a permanent message. QPR and Coventry City decided against the gesture in their game last Friday. Manouas now plays in the US, where they want the focus to stay on the Black Lives Matter message.
After the killing of George Floyd, there was a group of people that came together to form a group called the Black Players for Change. We were speaking with the commissioner, we were speaking with all the owners, talking about steps to progress, and there were so many actionable items which have come from people coming together and having those discussions.
England bowler Anya Shrubsole is going to join us on 5 Live Breakfast in just a moment's time. England can take an unassailable 3-0 lead later in their T20 series against West Indies. That would be with a win in Derby. It'll be the first women's cricket as well, shown live on free-to-air TV for 27 years. Meanwhile, Essex resumed day 4 of the Bob Willis Trophy final on 271 for 6 at Lords. They're 30 runs behind Somerset in the first innings. Now, Britain's Lizzie Deignan said she's feeling lucky to be able to compete amid such uncertain times in the world right now. She's lining up in the women's road race at the World Championships in Italy.
If you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I would have said it wasn't going to happen. So we can't take races for granted at the moment. We can't really take anything for granted. So just happy to be here and represent Great Britain. I know I'm in a privileged position to be able to be just doing my job at the moment, really.
Elsewhere, Warrington have gone top of the Super League with a win over Catalan Dragons, while Wigan beat Wakefield. And make of this what you will, but Conor McGregor's tweeted to say he's coming out of retirement to box Manny Pacquiao in the Middle East. The UFC fighter retired back in June. That was the 3rd time in 4 years.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live on digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
Did you mention Conor McGregor there? Was that?
I might have done.
and this is Pacquiao, isn't it?
Yes, 41.
So have we got to get excited about all of this?
I don't know. I wouldn't hold your breath.
I don't want to buy into all of that. I had enough of it last time round.
Yeah,
but anyway,
exactly.
Okay, Katie, thank you for today. We'll see you soon. What was the whole thing, Helen? It was now...
Fairy liquid.
Now hands that do dishes can feel as soft as your face. It's a strange... I always thought it's a strange catchline, isn't it? That you're saying your hands are going to be as soft as your face. But anyway, there it is. How much would you pay for washing up liquid? A bottle of washing up liquid? What's a reasonable price to pay?
About $1.59.
You reckon?
Yeah.
An own brand at supermarkets, less than 50p.
Yeah, like...
Less than 50p. Go down Tesco's, 35p, I think it is.
Yeah, I always go for
right?
the good stuff.
Yeah, okay, I get it. What about 22 quid
No!
for a litre of washing up liquid? Yep. There's a story, it's not really a story, but you know what I mean. He's a homeware guru called Tom Dixon. And it's £22. I've gone looking around. It's 22 quid in Selfridges and Liberty. It's that kind. That's where they're positioning this, right? And the kind of ad for it says, hydrating and paraben-free. This washing up liquid brings a hint of luxury to what is usually seen as an arduous chore. Lightly scented with a pleasant London fragrance.
What's the smell of London?
I don't know if you want it all over your hands when you're doing the washing up. Features notes of pepper, vetiver, me neither, and patchouli that will not linger on your freshly washed dishes.
I don't think we're his target audience.
Do you not? Well, I'll tell you, Stav Danaeus was telling me he's already ordered half a dozen bottles. Half a dozen.
It's going to smell like aftershave,
He said,
isn't it?
He said, I'm going to get changed.
«Гараж». Программа Сергея Асланяна на радио «Эхо Москвы».
Здравствуйте. Иногда так хочется вспомнить мирную жизнь, когда мы с вами все-таки еще были автомобилистами, и поговорить хочется об автомобилях. Хотя, понятное дело, что на сегодняшний день автомобили становятся уже каким-то предметом из детских сказок. Приятно вспомнить красивые картинки, но что это такое? Это то, чем мы, в общем-то, в этой жизни, скорее всего, уже пользоваться не будем. Ну и вы помните этот эпизод в фильме «Титаник», сейчас уместны как раз аналогии, когда оркестранты, они поняли, что спастись не удастся, и оркестр продолжил играть. Вот я сейчас как раз в роли такого оркестра, когда Да, то, что происходит в стране, то, что происходит на примере Москвы, это сценарий, когда «Титаник» тонет, а оркестр продолжает играть. Об автомобилях. Совершенно чудная история произошла, буквально развернувшись за несколько дней. У тех, кто с самого начала ее отслеживал, была возможность в динамике преднаблюдать, с чего началось и чем все кончилось. Некая девочка, перелистывая архивы в компании Ford в Америке, ей была поставлена задача заняться отцифровкой фотографий. Нашла, в числе прочего, некоторое количество картинок. Оцифровала их, и нужно было как-то придумать подпись. Это что такое? И она, естественно, подняла руку и сказала: дяденьки, вы тут на компании Ford работаете довольно давно, у меня подпись какую-то. Потому что понятно, что вот эти картинки, это 66-й год. А что за машина, я не знаю, мне бы какую-то идентификационную метку. Дяденьки посмотрели и сказали: ой, а мы не знаем, что это такое. То есть, понятно, это Ford. Понятно, это 66-й год, там на фотографии специальная плашка, и видно, что это 66-й год. Но, люди добрые, а мы не помним, чем мы занимались в компании Ford в 66-м году. Притом, особенность этих фотографий в том, что там какой-то ходовой прототип. Это такой, скорее, макет, некий носитель агрегатов. Там нету ярко выраженных кузовных деталей. То есть видна платформа, двигатель, кабина, задние крылья, которые штампуются сразу с боковиной, но нету передних крыльев, нету капота, нету фар, нету крыши. И поэтому готовый автомобиль здесь угадывается в последнюю очередь. А что за ходовой прототип? Хорошо, над чем мы работали? А история эта своим началом на самом деле заглядывает на 5-летку тому назад. Потому что 5 лет тому назад девочка нашла эту фотографию и спросила: ой, что это? И компания Ford пошла искать. Они пошли спрашивать из отдела в отдел: эй, сторожилы! Ну, сторожилы — это те люди, которые никогда ничего не помнят. Сторожилы, вы не помните, чем мы занимались в компании Ford в 66-м году? Все говорят: о, какая интересная машина. Странно, значит так, двигатель V8. Здорово. Подвеска полностью независимая. Это на Форде-то полностью независимая подвеска. Для 66-го года, но это что-то на уровне полета в космос. И так целых 5 лет в компании Ford ходили и друг у друга спрашивали, кто помнит, чем мы занимались в компании в 66-м году. И не вспомнили. И не нашли. И нет в компании Ford людей, которые могут твердо сказать: в 66-м году мы работали над прототипом, который стал такой-то моделью, таким-то шоу-каром или таким-то, например, агрегатом, поделился с каким-то серийным изделием. И тогда эта история, которая, собственно, сдетонировала у нас с вами на глазах, компания Ford на весь мир крикнула: люди добрые, вам все равно сейчас делать нечего. Давайте картиночку опубликуем, а вы нам расскажете, что такое у нас тут происходило в фирме. На прошлой неделе опубликовали эти фотографии, буквально 5 рабочих дней прошло, и через 5 дней был правильный ответ. Все, сказали, значит так, компания Ford. Это спорт-прототип одной из версий Форда Мустанга. Это Ford Mustang, который назывался Матч 2. Его делали как шоу-стоппер для выставки 67-го года. И, в принципе, он получился немножко другим. А это, да, действительно такой скелетик, на котором можно проехаться по цехам и потом на него уже поставить кузов. Почему у Форда вообще, в принципе, была полная картина непонимания, что за машина? Потому что у этой машины, у этого автомобиля, у этого ходового макета была очень странная компоновка. Ford в серийных моделях по этому принципу никаких машин на конвейер не поставил. Работать там, мало ли, КБ, оно может позволить себе любой полет творческой мысли. Но чтобы из этого стала серийная машина, нет. У этой машины центрально-моторное расположение силового агрегата. Двигатель в базе. Причем двигатель стоит не поперечно, двигатель стоит продольно, прямо сразу за спиной у водителя. Машина двухместная. Причем у машины очень странная пропорция за счет этого. Она странная в том смысле, что вызывает восхищение. Она никак не обнаруживает в себе эту деструктивность салона, выдвинутого вперед. Это явно спортивный автомобиль, явно предназначенный для того, чтобы очень быстро, очень классно ездить, но двигатель у него в базе. А с двигателем в базе у Форда ничего нет. И тут, раскручивая, продолжая это следствие и поиск, и теперь уже имея подсказку, что это Матч 2, стало понятно, что в принципе происходило в компании Ford. У них на тот момент был победоносный GT40. У GT40, у гоночного автомобиля, у него как раз двигатель стоит где надо, в базе. И это очень сложный в управлении автомобиль. На сегодня только Porsche себе позволяет двигатель в базе. Ну, до недавнего времени там Toyota и MR-ки были с двигателем в базе. Но в целом это для людей очень искушенных. Это не тот автомобиль, на который можно сесть и вот так вот легко поехать. Конечно, по прямой ты поедешь. Как только ты пойдешь в поворот, ты его один раз пройдешь, второй раз пройдешь, третий раз пройдешь, а на четвертый ты намотаешься на столб. Потому что у тебя совершенно непривычная развесовка. У тебя перед легкий, у тебя передние колеса недозагружены. Мы-то привыкли, у нас двигатель находится спереди, поэтому поворотные колеса у нас всегда в любой ситуации имеют нагрузку. Особенно если речь идет о шоссе. А задние колеса, почему машина бывает в управляемом заносе, в неуправляемом заносе? Это требуется навык, для этого требуется навык. Но навык у большинства людей отработан, и он довольно логичен. На заднеприводном автомобиле всем понятно, как ехать. На машине среднемоторной компоновки вообще непонятно, как ездить. И тем более, когда на избыточной мощности. На Lamborghini сейчас, на всякий случай, у тебя полный привод. Потому что, не дай бог, ты с этими 12 цилиндрами подумаешь, что ты умнее машины и умеешь ездить лучше, чем она. А здесь 60-е годы. Сделали гоночную машину. GT40 это, конечно, будь здоров, какая машина. Ну, многие из вас видели фильм, недавно вышедший на экраны, и там как раз есть очень неплохая сюжетная линия, посвященная тому, как это все происходило, зачем и насколько победоносной была машина. И 24 часа Ле-Мана для Форда это было очень интересно. Они с большим удовольствием побеждали, и у них на тот момент уже был Ford Mustang. Красавец. Машина на банальной платформе. Ну, обычная заднеприводная. Если автомат, то трехступенчатый. Архаика та еще. Сзади мост неразрезной, практически от грузовика. Но фантастической красоты кузов. И Ford Mustang, который коммерчески был невероятно успешным, он поразил в самое сердце американцев. Это была машина, которая вот по сию пору, она единожды родившись на свет, в любой своей реинкарнации, легендарная. Американцы обожают Ford Mustang. Но, по большому счету, нет людей, которым не нравится Ford Mustang. Хотя вот там модель 1984 года спорная. На мой взгляд, и второй Мустанг тоже спорный. И вот здесь видно, сделали шедевр. Сделали красотулю Ford Mustang. Какой будет Ford Mustang второго поколения? И, к сожалению, допустили ошибку. К сожалению, пошли и сделали вообще такую машину, которая в стилистике Форда Мустанга не имеет ничего общего. Потом вернулись, и нынешний Ford Mustang — это работа совсем гениальная. Потому что поколение нынешнее, оно имеет четкий совершенно отсыл к первому. Второе поколение — нет. Здесь была попытка сделать еще раз перезагрузку. Это будет любимый вами уже, товарищи американцы, Ford. Это будет Mustang, но он будет кардинально другой. И вот, находясь на старте этой ошибки, пытались сделать машину, которая вообще не похожа никак на Ford Mustang. А насколько она не похожа? Она не похожа внешне? Хорошо. А по конструкции? А по конструкции давайте попробуем развить идею успешного спорта, и давайте попробуем сделать так, что эта машина станет еще более серьезной, еще более гоночной, еще более для искушенного человека. И поставим ей мотор посреди, прямо вот непосредственно перед задней осью, за спиной водителя. И пока инженеры искали подход к тому, чтобы Ford Mustang следующего поколения был совсем грандиозный, чтобы он стал еще грандиознее, чем первое поколение, в этот момент дизайнер, главный дизайнер Форда, Джин, ну на самом деле Юджин, у него там в зависимости от того, какой кто язык учил и кто каким предпочитает вариантом транскрипции пользоваться, его на самом деле, если прочитать по буквам, так его Евгений звали. Евгений Бордина. Что-то такое странное, да? Женечка Бордина, а ты часом каких кровей ты будешь? Так вот, Юджин Бордина, если хотите, Бордина, а те, кто учил немецкий, те в конце у него видят букву Т и читают Бординат. Так вот, Юджин, на тот момент главный дизайнер, у него была неприязнь к Мустангу. Не он рисовал Мустанг. И вот ведь есть легенда. Юджин Бордина был уже к тому моменту главным дизайнером. Вообще у него, кстати, блестящее образование. Он закончил Мичиганский университет, у него художественное образование. Он изначально был дизайнером. После того, как он закончил Мичиганский университет, он еще учился в центре стиля. И работая на Форде, он как раз был сторонником неярких решений. Бордино считал, что машина должна продаваться. И у него, кстати, есть цитата о том, как именно он понимал красоту. Красота – это хороший 10-дневный отчет о продажах. Это не значит, что Бордино не был творцом. Потому что Бордине принадлежит, например, такая гениальная машина, как Ford Pinto. Ford Pinto – это малолитражка. И для американцев сделать приемлемую малышку, при том, что Америка такого не приемлет на самом деле, это действительно очень серьезный ход. И Кугуар 2 – это его любимая машина. Кугуар 2 концепт 67-68 года, он не пошел в серию в таком виде. И Бордино делал его для себя. А у дизайнеров, кстати, у дизайнеров компании была такая состязательность. Они делали машину мечты. Вот когда ты находишься на Олимпе, когда ты самый главный стилист здоровенного концерна, ты будешь пользоваться каким критерием для определения, что такое хорошо и что такое плохо? У тебя есть массовый сегмент, у тебя есть премиальный сегмент. И в какой-то момент ты приходишь, хочешь или нет, к тому, что ты свое представление о красоте начинаешь материализовывать. И Бордино хотел сделать машину мечты. Машина мечты у него получилась в виде Форда Кугуара 2. Но он же Меркурий, кстати. А вот непосредственно этот Мустанг, первый Мустанг, вызывал у него ревность. Ведь у первого Мустанга легенда гласит, что когда компания Ford на директорате обсуждала, что им нужна какая-то прорывная модель, она была в общих чертах, не было технического задания. Сидят степенные мужи и говорят: мы проигрываем «Шевроле». Знаете ли, у них есть спортивная линейка. Нам нужно что-то такое, что заставит Америку схватиться за сердце. Мы не можем пойти по итальянскому пути, мы не будем создавать Феррари, мы не будем делать Лянчу, у нас не будет Альфа-Ромео. Нам нужен в рамках нашего подразделения какой-то продукт, причем желательно, чтобы он был выгодным. То есть его не нужно создавать с нуля. Давайте мы возьмем платформу и отдадим полностью всю ситуацию дизайнерам. Художники, нарисуйте нам шедевр. И когда трепетные параметры вот эти вот были определены, значит так, это должен быть шедевр, все должны ахнуть, он должен быть спортивный, и он должен быть на каком-нибудь дровяном шасси, неважно, как он едет. До дизайнеров этот разговор дошел, а они, согласно легенде, заранее понимая, это же тонкие люди, это люди тонких настроек, рисовали автомобиль своей мечты, для себя. И он у них висел в дизайн-бюро на стенке. Он уже был готов в пропорциях, в проработке деталей. Этот автомобиль уже даже примелькался, потому что все, кто заходил в дизайн-бюро, в центр стиля Форда, они так или иначе видели эту машину, говорили, что? Говорят, это так, факультативно, мы тут для себя рисуем. Мелками на асфальте дети рисуют, там, пусть всегда будет солнце, мы вот автомобили рисуем. И там был Ford Mustang. И когда техзадание стало обретать параметры, и уже нужно было предложить какой-то продукт, то тот же самый Бордино, он пошел в отдел дизайна, подошел к этой картинке и сказал: вот это та самая машина, которую мы теперь будем делать. Снял ватман, отнес его в свой отдел, с него начали снимать чертежи, чуть-чуть его подгонять под существующее шасси, и так Америка и компания Ford получили модель Mustang. Бордино его не рисовал. Бордино к нему ревновал. Машина получилась сверхуспешная. Именно поэтому Бордино решил, что второе поколение будет рисовать он сам. Второе поколение он сделает кардинально не похожим на первое. Ага. Спасибо, молодец, сделал. Хорошо у тебя получилось, да. Те, кто не является большим американистом, когда смотрят, что там в кадре мелькнуло, они так: Мустанг, мы знаем. Мустанг — это навсегда классика первого поколения. Сколько бы ни было бы фар, какой бы у него ни был бы тип кузова, с какой бы трансмиссией он ни предлагался, Мустанг — это всегда первое поколение. И нынешнее, которое прекрасно повторяет ту же самую стилистику, хотя это другая машина, но насколько четко, насколько красиво, насколько здорово она повторяет вот эти вот очертания, вот эти параметры того самого прародителя. А Бордино при этом оставался очень толковым человеком, при том, что его на работу благословил сам знаменитый Харли Эрл. Ну, правда, у американцев у них есть такая способность, они любого своего главного дизайнера, главного конструктора и генерального директора считают великим. на кого ни посмотри, говорят: о, ну что вы, это великий Смит, это великий Джонсон, а это великий Эрл, кто угодно. Вот как только он достиг статуса, да вы что, это же легендарный, это же великий. И Бордини в этом отношении повезло. Юджин тоже. Это, ну что вы, это знаменитый Бордино. Это тот человек, в период которого были в том числе Мустанги, был Кугуар. И были очень интересные работы. Но ревность заставила искать другой облик. А в это время конструкторы, вот они же работали над концептом 66-го года, начиная с 65-го. А в этот момент была машина Chevrolet Carvair. Это машина конкурента. Машина, которая изначально рождалась как, ну, скорее всего, легковушка обычная, банальная, а потом продажи не пошли, ей начали срочно создавать имидж спортивной машины. И тут началась гибель людей. У Carvair, у нее двигатель стоял сзади. Американцы не привыкли ездить на машинах, у которых мотор где бы то ни было, но не спереди. И после того, как машины начали одна за другой улетать в кювет, водители стали погибать, появился журналист Ральф Найдер, который выпустил книгу «Опасен на любой скорости» и похоронил Carvair. Это был такой некролог, это был такой скандал, это была такая поминальная молитва, что больше в модельной линейке компании Chevrolet Carvair не упоминался. Похоронил так похоронил. Причина, претензии были к тому, что американцы не умеют ездить на машине, у которой силовой агрегат стоит где-то там за спиной. И неважно, насколько далеко, в заднем свесе или в базе. Не спереди, все, американцы теряются. У американцев с управляемостью после этого, с пониманием управляемости возникают очень серьезные проблемы. И когда у Chevrolet была конкурентная машина, европейская школа здесь не рассматривается. Porsche остается сам по себе. Потому что Porsche по управляемости, как был эталоном, так и остается. Американцы так делать не умеют. Но Chevrolet Carvair ушел с рынка со скандалом. Книга была опубликована, и этот скандал взорвался настолько мощно, что, долетев до Форда, работы были прекращены. Было четкое понимание, зачем мы сделаем машину с таким заранее на старте испорченным имиджем. У нас мотор будет отныне стоять только спереди. Если мы хотим центральным силовой агрегат, это будет машина для спорта, пожалуйста, в Лимане она побеждает. Для рядового потребителя нам достаточно стандартного Мустанга, у которого будет второе поколение. Но Бордини надо отдать должное. Вот тот концепт, матч второй, настолько красивая машина получилась. Она настолько необычная. И, кстати, Кугуар 2 в этой же самой стилистике сделаны. Вот это два гениальных автомобиля. И в этом концепте матч, который все угадали наконец-то, в нем не видно и не чувствуется, что двигатель стоит не в том месте, в котором не привыкли мы. Перерыв на новости.
Программа Сергея Асланяна «Гараж».
В Америке, где красивые машины, возвращаемся в нашу действительность, а у нас новость удивительная, у нас автозаводы, а также все остальные отраслевые серьезные предприятия приступили к работе. Они ослушались Владимира Владимировича Путина, нашего президента. Президент сказал, всем сидеть до 30-го. А они, тем не менее, всю эту неделю выходят и каждый день рапорт. Наш завод приступил к работе, наш завод приступил. Мы выпускаем танки, автомобили, противогазы, мы выпускаем все то же самое, что делали. Почему так получилось, что если в Москве зондеркоманды не пускают, это оценочное суждение, людей в город и сейчас как раз тренируются по распределению всех по чумным баракам, это тоже оценочное суждение, то во всей остальной стране, пожалуйста, хочешь идти на завод, иди на завод. Тебе надо работать, работай. Почему огромный, например, АвтоВАЗ приступил к работе, Ижмаш приступил к работе, ну ладно, Ижевск который. А почему работает завод Hyundai, Kia, почему работает КАМАЗ, Горьковский автозавод, почему Автотор заработал? Не работает у нас только два. У нас не работает Toyota и не работает Nissan. Вот они сказали, что да, мы берем под козырек и до 30 числа все в отпуске. Остальные заработали. Заработала практически вся индустрия. Что происходит? Почему на большом заводе коронавирусом никто не заболевает, а, например, в московском метро коронавирусом все заболеют или, наоборот, не заболеют? Вот сегодня как раз эксперимент. По итогам той скученности, которая обсуждается весь день и в соцсетях сопровождается роликами, мы будем знать некоторое количество людей, конечно, из неофициальной статистики, которые умрут, потому что они стоят в затылок друг к другу